It is Monday morning, bright and early, about 8:15 a.m. Sitting here in my car before I do a day's work. I bring people out on a history tours. Very despondent about a very important issue that is occurring in Ireland today and for the last while and ongoing. It's more important than any of the other issues I have heard and delved into and seen and whatnot. More important than the presidential election, more important than some fellow organising a political party, more important than a poor unfortunate lady that was killed down in Tipperary by a guest in her house. More important even than the poor young fellow from Ukraine who was fleeing the mincemeat chopper of death, and instead of that he ended up in Ireland where he should have been safe, and he was not. He was killed 3 days later. I'm speaking about 3 people that are on hunger strike outside Donovan, which is the Irish Parliament. Now, in Ireland, a hunger strike has more meaning and history than in other parts of the world. It's a very, very touchy subject in Ireland, the topic of starvation and hunger, etc. It was one of the early forms of protest introduced and used by a fellow down in Cork there over 100 years ago, Terence McSweeney, who starved himself to death. In more recent times, 10 people starved themselves to death up in Northern Ireland in 1981. Now there are 3 people on day 30, outside Donovan in a ramshackle tent, and they are on a hunger strike. These are older people, I'm estimating in the 60s into the 70s. You might ask the obvious question, why are they on hunger strike and why are they facing possible death very, very soon? These people are not young, healthy people in their prime. They will be failing very, very soon, and that is why I'm taking time out of my day here to bring light to this subject. It's not on RTE, it's not on Virgin Media, it's not on any major media outlets whatsoever. I saw one lady going down there and interviewing them. Other people are trying to bring it to the forefront, so I am also going to do my little part here to bring this issue to the forefront. The 3 people that are involved in this hunger strike is Miriam Owens. She's a lady that was, unfortunately, her mother died of TB back in 1959. And at the age of 1, she was taken and put into a institution by the state, not by the church. It was run by the church, but it was the state that did this. They gave her a criminal record because they couldn't hold her unless she was a criminal, and she was going to be there for 16 years, and I think it turned out to be more than 16 years. She was dehumanized. She was not allowed to use her name. She was given a number, like in the camps of Eastern Europe. Her number was 1061. And that was what she was referred to from that point on. That happened in 1959. The other person's name was Mary Dunlevy, and the gentleman's name is Maurice O'Connell. Their names aren't important, but their lives are very important. And the fact that they're left there in this condition is absolutely disgraceful. Now, their story very simply is, they were one of thousands of people put into these institutions, and they were treated inhumanely and suffered greatly. They eventually got out. They did their best to resume their lives. These people, at least 1 or 2 of them, are grandparents. They've got on with it. Their childhood at school was very unpleasant because they were stigmatized. They were set aside from the other students, and life was difficult. In the fullness of time, there was an inquiry, and restitution was going to be made. There was an agreement made back in May the 11th, 1999, I believe. Bertie Ahern was the fellow that was making this agreement. This is 26 years ago. They were promised this, that, and the other. But their promises were unfulfilled. What they are requiring now, what they're asking for, is what is just, and it's very, very little that they're asking for. They are asking to be given a full medical card. It doesn't cost that much. They're also asking to be given a full pension for the work they had done. I would call it slave labor in those institutions. Needless to say, they've been met with a wall of silence. Nobody wants to talk to these people. Mary McAtee went down there and she spoke to them. The lady described Mary McAtee as something that she was well used to in the institutions, like the most cruel of the nuns themselves. That is how she described Mary McAtee. With a blank stare. No humanity whatsoever. Now, it's not a case that there's no money available for these small things. The numbers we're talking about is just 4,500 people, a miserable pension, and a little bit of medical care. It's minimal. But Simon Harris has money to give $100 million to Gaza. Gaza, of course, is a fiasco that the Irish government should not be dealing with at all. They should mind their own business. There was a peace treaty back there, lasted a few days. Then there was atrocities. The Hamas people killed. Collaborators, they call them. I would call them poor fools. Not fools. Poor people that were just rounded up and somebody had a grudge against them. We all know how that works out. They were shot down in the street. That's 100 million right there. They have 400 million to give to the Ukraine in a war that cannot be won against a superpower. We will be lucky if we all don't get incinerated in a nuclear war, because we've got complete idiots in Western governments, such as Simon Harris and Micheál Martin, who have not any idea of anything whatsoever. 400 million euros to those guys. They have 1 billion euros to give in foreign aid each year to any place and every place. Needless to say, that foreign aid goes to the rich people. It goes from poor people in rich countries, mainly the poor people in Ireland, poor people in rich countries, and it ends up in the pockets of rich people in poor countries. It is a very, very simple thing. Uganda used the money to buy some advanced MiG fighters from Russia. That is what the money was used for that ended up in Uganda. That was about 5 years ago, whatever. Anyway, $1 billion a year foreign aid. It is now estimated that migrants coming in, shysters, most of them, except for the poor fellow that got killed, and some more, $2 billion a year. Plenty of money for those guys, plenty of money for Ukraine, plenty of money for Gaza, plenty of money for bicycle sheds, plenty of money for all sorts of codology. While 3 people are facing death, approaching very, very quickly, now into day 31. I would hope that everybody that has a bit of humanity will share this video. I would call upon all the other YouTube people, the fellow up in Donegal, the person down in Kerry, the lad in Offaly, Philip himself in Dublin, all the others, Steenson, the bigger guys then that are asking people to spoil their vote. We all know who he is. He's down there in Abbey, as I call it. He's down in Abbey. Spoil your vote. How about going up and saving the 3 lives of the poor pensioners who are not getting their full pension, starving and freezing outside Dáil Éireann? Thank you for watching.